طرابلس وتجوب الشوارع لإخراج المستعمر.
أشكرك شكرا جزيلا الدكتورة انتصار القليب، أنت ناشطة وباحثة في المجتمع المدني المحلي والإقليمي، كنت معنا عبر الهاتف من العاصمة الليبية طرابلس. شكرا جزيلا. شكرا ألف شكر. مستمعينا الأفاضل في كل مكان، نلتقي غدا في أمان الله.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to draft laws and presentations in various sectors. Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf has had a phone call with his Tunisian counterpart, Mr. Mohamed Ali Nafti. At least 4 Palestinians were killed and several others wounded in French bombardment carried out today in the refugee camp of Nusayrat in the central part of Gaza. Those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting of the Council of Ministers devoted to the examining of draft laws and presentations related to various sectors. Asya Bakkar has the details in this report.
Following the presentation given by the Prime Minister on the government's activity over the past 2 weeks, followed by another presentation on the progress of global digitalization given by the Minister, High Commissioner for Digitization, as well as interventions by ministers on draft laws and presentations, the President of the Republic gave several instructions and guidelines. The President of the Republic has instructed the government to adopt additional measures concerning the retirement of teachers, taking into account the specificity of this noble profession and the difficulties related to its exercise, the details of which will be mentioned in an executive decree. Regarding the law relating to the health sector, the Council of Ministers approved the special status of the medical and paramedical professions, which include specialist physicians, general practitioners, dental surgeons, pharmacists, paramedics, midwives, anesthesists, biologists, psychologists, paramedical teachers, and physiologists. The President of the Republic congratulated the bodies of this strategic and vital sector for the nation for the completion of the development of the final version of the law, hoping that the latter contributes to a better understanding and management of the concerns of the men and women of the sector and to the improvement of their performance. Regarding the creation of the new administrative districts, the Council of Ministers approved the proposal to promote several constituencies to the rank of administrative district managed by delegate governors. The decision of the President of the Republic came as part of his ongoing efforts to generalize the pace of development according to the principle of equity in addressing the concerns of citizens, taking into account the geographical, social, and economic specificities of these regions to be established as administrative districts. Regarding the presentation of partnerships within the framework of the hydrocarbon law, the President of the Republic ordered the government to continue developing the national energy system in the best interests of the country. The President emphasized the importance of investment in clean energies, their exportation, and the allocation of their revenues to the national development. The Council of Ministers approved the draft law on the budget regulation in 2022 financial year, as well as the presidential decrees concerning international cooperation.
The Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, has had a phone call with the Tunisian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and Tunisians Abroad, Mr. Mohamed Ali Nafti. Mohamed Khatil has more details.
The call was an opportunity to examine joint efforts aimed at giving more momentum and dynamic to the relations of brotherliness and cooperation existing between the two sisterly countries, in line with the instructions of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, and his brother, President Qais Said. The two ministers also exchanged views and analyses on a number of regional issues of common interest. Mr. Attaf also received a phone call from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Migration of the Sisterly Arab Republic of Egypt, Mr. Badr Abdelati. The call was devoted to discussing ways to strengthen bilateral relations through the implementation of the outcomes of the official visit paid by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, to Egypt last October. The two ministers also discussed the latest developments in the Middle East, particularly in Syria. Meanwhile, the Algerian diplomacy chief received today at the ministry's headquarters the U.S. ambassador to Algeria, Ms. Elizabeth Moore-Aubin. The two sides discussed during the meeting the various aspects of the Algerian-U.S. relations, highlighting the progress made in the implementation of a number of partnership projects in the economic field. The two parties also seized the opportunity to exchange views on the latest developments in the Middle East region.
The Director General of Algerian Customs, Major General Abdelhafid Baghouch, has received his Libyan counterpart, Major General Moussa Ali Mohammed, and his accompanying delegation, now on a working visit aimed at strengthening customs cooperation between the two countries. According to a statement issued by the General Directorate of Customs, the meeting focused on discussing ways to enhance administrative cooperation and coordinate efforts between the customs departments in the two countries, with emphasis on developing human capabilities through joint training programs. The need to unify efforts to combat illegal activities that threaten security and stability in Algeria and Libya was also high on the meeting's agenda. The initiative is part of the two countries' commitment to strengthen bilateral cooperation in the customs field in a way that supports joint economic and security relations and reflects the will of both sides to confront regional challenges and exchange expertise to achieve common goals that serve the national interest of the two countries. The Speaker of the People's National Assembly, Ibrahim Boughali, in his capacity as President of the Arab Interparliamentary Union, AIPU, is chairing the 36th session of the AIPU Executive Committee at the headquarters of the Arab League in Cairo, Egypt. Mr. Boughali is chairing a joint delegation from the two houses of parliament made up of the chairman of the presidential third-party parliamentary group in the Council of the Nation and a member of the AIPU Executive Committee, Mr. Said Erous, the chairman of the parliamentary group of the National Democratic Rally, Afif Senoussa. Earlier, a coordination meeting of the delegation from the Council of the Nation was held under the instruction of the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Mr. Saleh Goujil. The meeting came ahead of the participation of the joint delegation of the two houses of parliament, chaired by the Speaker of the People's National Assembly and the Speaker of the AIPU, Mr. Ibrahim Boughali. On the agenda of the two meetings are the examination of regulatory issues relating to the Union's budget and the headquarters of its General Secretariat, the mechanisms for boosting the activities of its standing committees, and the selection of the winners of the prize of the Committee for Arab Parliamentary Excellence in its various categories, in addition to the presentation of recommendations at the next AIPU conference. The International Association of the Friends of the Algerian Revolution has warned here in Algiers against the dangers of proxy wars, calling for international conflicts to be resolved through dialogue and within the framework of international bodies. In its final communiqué issued at the end of the second session of its General Assembly, the association reaffirmed its support for Algeria's consistent stance in favour of just causes, warning against the dangers of proxy wars, which are the driving force behind conflicts in Africa, the Sahel region, and the Middle East. The members of the association also called for the priority to be given to resolving conflicts through dialogue in compliance with legal frameworks and within the international organizations, reiterating their commitment to strengthening relations of cooperation and coordination, to continuing the struggle alongside the free men of the world, and to supporting NGOs and international bodies with a view to establishing a new and just world order devoid of hegemony and injustice. At the end of the meeting, the participants thanked the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, for his efforts to preserve the national memory, reaffirming their commitment to achieving the association's objective, promoting the principles of peace and justice, and continuing the fight against colonialism. Earlier, the association speaker, Nourdine Joudi, said that the Friends of the Algerian Revolution, who supported the Algerian people in their fight against the French occupier, embodied a lively conscience committed to just causes throughout the world. Mr. Judy also called for the imperative need to enshrine the principles of justice and condemned colonialism in all its forms. At least 4 Palestinians were killed and several others wounded in fresh bombardments carried out today by the Israeli army against the refugee camp of Nusayrat in the central part of Gaza. The bombardments came in the wake of a new Israeli attack perpetrated against El Mawasi region west of the town of Rafah in the southern part of the enclave. According to the news agency Rafah, at least 5 Palestinians were killed and scores of others wounded and injured after several tents sheltering displaced near the British hospital were hit by the attack. In this respect, the head of communication at UNRWA's office in Gaza, Ines Hamdan, has warned against the escalation of the Israeli violence in the besieged enclave.
The Gaza Strip is confronted to an escalation in the Israeli attacks to more victims among civilian population, including women and children. There are also the continuing attacks on vital infrastructure, including by UNRWA centers.
She also insisted on the importance of reaching a ceasefire to relieve the civilian population in Gaza confronted to relentless bombardments for over 1 year now.
All wars have rules, but it seems that these rules are violated. It is important that a ceasefire be reached now. The population of Gaza are in need of calm and appeasement after all the sufferings they have been going through for over 1 year. We also must allow in aid urgently and in sufficient quantities to all parts of Gaza.
This came as the non-governmental organization Oxfam warned against the deterioration of the situation in the besieged territory, affirming that food and water were distributed to the population in Gaza's northern part for the first time in 2 months and a half after only a dozen of lorries were allowed in. It assured that since the Israeli army launched its operation against the area, Oxfam and several other NGOs have been continuously prevented from supplying a vital aid to the area. And now the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed dismay at the killing of World Food Programme staff members in an aerial bombardment in Sudan and called for a thorough investigation to be opened. Mohamed Hatel has the detail in this report.
3 WFP personnel were killed when their office in Yabous in the Blue Nile state was hit by airstrikes. The agency confirmed on social media and said they are gathering more information. In a statement, Guterres sent his deepest condolences to the families of the victims and their colleagues. The UN chief condemned all attacks on UN and aid personnel and facilities and called for a thorough investigation to be opened. He said yesterday's incident underscores the devastating toll that Sudan's brutal conflict is having on millions of people in need and the humanitarians trying to reach them with life-saving assistance. Guterres called on the parties to adhere to their obligations to protect civilians, including aid personnel, as well as humanitarian premises and supplies. The UN chief once again urged the need for an immediate ceasefire in Sudan after more than 20 months of conflict. He said the United Nations will continue to back international mediation efforts and work with all relevant stakeholders to help bring an end to the war. WFP Executive Director Cindy McCain said any loss of life in humanitarian service is unconscionable. Humanitarians are not and must never be a target, demanding to open a thorough investigation and bring the perpetrators before justice. 2024 is the deadliest year on record for aid workers in Sudan, according to the United Nations.
The Sahrawi civilian prisoner Abdelmoula Al-Hafidi has started a 48-hour warning hunger strike. The sister of the Sahrawi civilian prisoner Abdelmoula Mohammed Al-Hafidi reported that the latter was systematically and deliberately excluded from taking the doctoral candidacy exam for the Legal, Economic, Political and Artificial Intelligence Research Department for the 2024-2025 season, which was scheduled for October 26, 2024, after he was included in the list of candidates to take the exam. With this last piece of news comes the end of our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to our economic program by Said Bouaziz. Stay tuned on Radio Algeria International.
According to the forecasts of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algeria could reach a GDP of $400 billion a year by 2027. Contrary to the pessimistic forecast of some and others, Algeria has succeeded thanks to the self-sacrifice of its children to overcome obstacles, achieving one success after another in terms of development and growth. The gas industry has gained momentum in the wake of extraordinary economic growth and, above all, a new dynamic affecting different areas of activity in the country. As the months and years go by, the industry's progress towards excellence is becoming increasingly evident. In the world rankings of gas exporting countries, Algeria is now ranked first in Africa and 10th in the world, well ahead of a number of continental and global energy powers. In Europe, Algeria is the second most reliable and regular supplier of gas to EU countries. In terms of natural gas production capacity, thanks to the increased efforts of the employees of the national oil company Sonatrach and its many subsidiaries, Algeria has been propelled into the new world rankings. The increase in the capacity of renewable energy projects is enough to make local and foreign occult forces talk. As of 2022, Algeria has made a spectacular leap of 5 places in the Global Innovation Index, rising from the 121st place in 2020 to the 115th place out of 132 countries ranked in 2022. As for agriculture, it has developed considerably in recent years despite climatic changes. The sector has performed well and continues to grow thanks to significant investments. In 2024, the agricultural industry is expected to grow by 6.1%, up from 2.8% in the previous year. In terms of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, a report by international experts published by Cambridge University Press ranks Algeria first in both the Arab and African regions. In terms of the Human Development Index, Algeria recorded a 31.2% increase, placing it among the nations with the highest human development indexes and first in continental Africa. The same applies to the New Times Higher Education Impact Rankings 2024, where 54 Algerian higher education establishments were ranked in 2024 instead of just 12 in the 2023 edition. In terms of the Life Expectancy Index, the Happiness Index and the Social Equity Index, Algeria is also better off than a number of African, Arab and even Western countries, whatever some may think. The upturn is here to stay, and it is continuing its fatal advance, much to the delight of patriots and the nation's children. In its latest report entitled World Economic Outlook, the International Monetary Fund maintained its forecast for growth in Algeria's gross domestic product GDP of 3.8% in 2024 and a fall in inflation to 5.3% for the same year. The Vice President of the World Bank in charge of the Middle East and North Africa region, Osman Dion, has said in Algiers that the Algerian economy is capable of achieving more sustained economic growth in the near future, noting the qualitative evolution of the partnership between Algeria and the international financial institution. During his meeting with the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, APM Brahim Boughali, in the presence of the accompanying delegation, Osman Dion indicated that Algeria can do more in terms of GDP growth and at a faster pace, pointing to the growth rate recorded by the country in recent years, estimated at 4% per year, with a return to the pre-COVID-19 health crisis growth rate in a short space of time. The World Bank representative pointed out that these were good results achieved thanks to the efforts of the Algerian authorities led by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, hailing the country's positive economic trajectory. Osman Dion believes that the performance of the Algerian economy in recent years brings it closer to that of certain emerging economies around the world, a goal that remains within the reach of the Algerian economy and its institutions. He also underlined that Algeria was capable of achieving the same economic performance as many emerging countries such as Vietnam, underlining that the partnership between Algeria and the World Bank, currently fruitful and solid, is set to become even stronger. Economic experts have unanimously attributed the high growth rates recorded by Algeria with a steady fall in inflation to the economic reforms undertaken by the country in recent years, indicators confirmed by the latest report from the international financial institutions calling for continued efforts to maintain this momentum.
يصفر الجنحين يحمر الخدين يكفي العينين هذه مودة وسنين
Hello and welcome to our weekly broadcast Inspiring Figures. Today we'll shed light on an icon of the Shabby music and a talented artist who spent his life serving the national musical heritage. We're talking, of course, of Shabby composer and singer Ammar Zahi, who passed away at the age of 75, leaving behind him eternal songs.
نترك ناسي مع أحبابي ونتبعها حتى يصير الجفن الواح هي قوتي وما شرابي في لسني ذكرها يفوت عسل الجباح أحلى من طيب كل ثمرة
Ammar Zahi had been the icon of the popular genre of Shabby over more than 50 years of career. Ammar Zahi, meaning Ammar the Joyful, was born as Ammar Eitzay in a village in Tizi Ouzou in 1941. He grew up in the Kasbah of Algiers. He was orphaned at a young age. During a wedding ceremony enlivened by the legend Boujma al-Anqis, Ammar Zahi, aged at the time 22 years old, was asked to sing during dinner time. After hesitating, he decided to sing, but he didn't bring his mandolin. Al-Anqis accepted to borrow him his music instrument to encourage him. Ammar Zahi sang Amint Lumi Kafluma, and he gained the audience's admiration. Since then, Al-Anqis took him under his wing.
والشرب كما عسل في مهجة من شربو يحتيا ويزهى يا سادات ما نجبر في الملاح عذرة ما نجبر في الملاح عذرة إلا هذا يميل عند يا حزار والساقي ما يريد فترة يملا ويمد ليك يوسك من السكر زورا يا عاشقين زورا المكة بالأروس دامي.
The young talent was influenced by Sheikh Qbaili and Haj Mohammed Al-Anqa, but refused to follow the cardinal's path, whether concerning the interpretation, the melody, or choice of lyrics. He wanted to refresh the Shabby style by following his desire to have a real music personality.
حسدوني الناس في غرامك يا غصن الياس مذبلت للنعاس عيونها مثل عيون غزالة وجميع اللي قاسدين والفيل البدر جهالة أبويا حنيني طاب قلبي من قولك لا لا.
60s and 70s, he sang dozens of songs written by famous Mahmoud Bati. Other singers worked with this outstanding Melhoun songwriter like El-Hashmi Grouabi, Boujamal Anqis, Amar Al-Ashab. We could hear the melodious voice of Zahi in his songs such as Dik Shim'a or That Candle, Mali Haja, Ya Al-Adara, Win Sibu, Elf Kia Kia, and Ash Adabi.
فرضوا على أصحابه زواجه كاملين أهلوا لمتوا ونصاروا جملة سيوف ربي ناس الخصلة الذي من بيهم يعلى الحق والباطل يتخلى ليوث العقاد في كل حرب وجهاد ياويح كل من عاندهم راسه على مهاجوطا
يا فاطمة بنت السلطان قلت بابا تجيني
Zahi was a composer, singer, and mandolin player. His repertoire includes dozens of songs he started recording in 1963. In 1976, he recorded 2 albums. He only gave 1 concert on February 10 in 1987 in Algiers. Instead, he performed in open places like cafes and terraces, mostly during family gatherings. Moreover, he shunned the media and turned down copyright checks. He was the figurehead of Shabi, the traditional music of Algiers.
كنز مصيون تحت الحجوب مكنون من علم المواهب عدة فلسون ندوهة الحبار لا فاطمة بنت الرسول حرمة بابك عالجيني بحسن كلا نشوف صاد النار.
After a long illness, Amar Zahi passed away at the age of 75. The artist had popular funeral